Alright, so this is the Mithraic meaning of hot, hot, hot by The Cure, which is apparently not a very well liked song. From what I was reading on Wikipedia, I guess Cure people don't really like it, and other people don't really like it, so whatever. But I never thought about it until recently that it might have any kind of deeper meaning. See, you've probably seen part one of the Biscione documentary. We talk about that image of the boy coming out of the mouth of the dragon, or most often described the other way around, that he's going into the mouth of the dragon. We've determined that he's coming out. What I'm talking about is this article, which is what both videos are based on. And this article really is just an excerpt of my introduction to Joseph von Hammer-Purgstall's Mysterium Baphometus Revelatum. So this whole article and the two videos that come from it, and there might even be a third or fourth coming from it, all part of that essay that I have as an introduction to Mysterium Baphometus. And it's all about this thing, you know. This is from the alleged Templar relics of Hammer-Purgstall. He said he found these coins in churches in Europe that were on former Templar properties, and the artifacts, he thought they were actually Templar artifacts. So these are, what I'm showing you here, are actual Templar artifacts according to him. And they have this thing on them, this little boy being swallowed, it seems, or coming out of this creature. I don't know what you would even call that. Some kind of tentacled thing. And Hammer-Purgstall, thought it was like the Biscione, which is this. It's the device, the official device of the Royal House of Milan, the House of Visconti in Milan. Okay, so, and it's the Alfa Romeo logo. And I write about how it's connected to the St. George symbolism and the crucified serpent symbolism of alchemy. And Matsya, he's a incarnation of Vishnu, and he's the guy with inside of this fish, and he just comes out and like gives you some advice every now and then. Like, famously, there was a king called Manu that he rescued from a flood, and I connected that with Jonah. See, so this is Jonah. You can see it's the same thing. He's in the belly of the whale or the fish. You know, he's coming out here out of the fish to bless the building of the temple, the Temple of Jerusalem. Okay, so anyway, connected to all this symbolism and stuff, and much of this, some of this is stuff that I'm putting together. A lot of it's coming from Hammer-Purgstall himself too. He's saying it's Gnostic, and then talked about some of the things I saw on this coin, which he is also again from Mysterium Baphometus, another coin. There's about 100 coins in Mysterium Baphometus that there's line drawings of them, and Hammer-Purgstall talks about how he thinks there's secret codes on them. He thinks they were all Templar coins, and that there's secret codes on them communicating Gnostic secrets. So I talk in the article, in the essay that I was just mentioning. It's called Meat Meat, is the big version. The whole essay is called Meat Meat. That's the introduction that I wrote. And you can get it on tracytwyman.com for free. So I analyze all this stuff, and then I add my own, I analyze what he wrote, I tell you what he wrote, then I add some of my own interpretations if we were to take some of his basic speculations to be truthful, if we take them to be given, that they are Templar artifacts and that there are hidden Gnostic symbols on them. Let's just take it a step further, and what more can we do with it? And it's supposed to say auto, because these really are coins of the, the House of Ascania in what used to be Bohemia, I think, and is now Germany. Anyway, the House of Ascania, there's these autos who were the Margraves of Brandenburg there. And so there's Otto the first and Otto the second. This is thought to be Otto the second. I found other Otto the first and second coins and found them to be similar. Let's see if I can go back to the thing to show you. So like here are the ones that he shows. Here's some of the other ones that he shows, right? Where he finds all sorts of Gnostic codes, and he goes to great, one would say totally ridiculous lengths to try to find the word gnosis encoded in it, and you have to like exchange one letter for another and read a Greek character where there's really a regular type of character, but assume that it's a Greek letter and then transpose it for something else. Oh my god, it's just really, really complicated, but I go through it all in the essay and in the translation to tell you exactly what he said about it. It's all kind of painful, and yet at the end you're left with the feeling that there's still something there. It's like he's being ridiculous, and yet then there's still some things he's right about that then kind of bring all of the things he's saying into the realm of possibility, whereas you're thinking, well, maybe he's really seeing something here. And maybe there really is something here. Like, he basically is really saying that the House of Ascania is a family of Gnostic heretics. And I think he's also saying that about the House of Visconti. Wow, Ascania Visconti. I wonder if those are Ascania Visconti. I wonder if those two things are related. But anyway, he's saying yes, it is the name Otto, but Otto is also a Gnostic code word. Now I went and I found this. Here's an actual seal of Otto the Second. These are from Mysterium Baphometus here, but again, look at the kind of look on this guy's face. Hi, and this guy, ha ha ha. I mean, that's so cool. I love the look on his face. And then there's this guy. You know, you can see the facial expression is the same. Like, you would think, first, if I just looked at this without seeing anything else, I would think, oh, that's just really crude artisanship, and then crude line drawing of a crudely made coin. So and then it's been Xeroxed, and now it just looks kind of ridiculous. But it's more than that. You can see that this guy's facial expression really is kind of like that. You know, I don't know what you would call it, but what is it? It's like, oh my god, right? What's that meme? You know, actually, that is a striking similarity. Look at that. Look at that. It's really amazing. Yeah, they look alike. They totally look alike. Now, let's add in Hammer Perkstall's one too. What does he look like? There's some dog cartoon that he looks just like. But at any rate, this is really the one that got me going here, because what Hammer Perkstall said he found in this coin was just really funny, you know, and I wrote about it in the intro here, and then I ended up thinking about something else in relation to it. Okay, so you got the word, it's like Otto, O-T-T, well, no, it should be Otto. Yeah, okay, O-T-T-O, Otto. And then you got this weird X here. What's that about? I don't know. I never knew what to make of it in the first place. I've stared at it many times and not known what to make of that X, and then I finally translated what Hammer Perkstall said, and I saw that he even had wondered what the heck that thing is. And then here's what he finally came up with. He wrote it in Latin, and I had it translated into English. Auto can be read as numeric zeros with two truncated crosses, and also not incorrectly understood as phalluses and chalices, or as symbolizing this Greek word. And I had put in brackets here that because it's hard to tell what the Greek word is. It's hard to tell what the first letter is, whether it's one or the other of these characters. And so it could either be a Greek word that means comb, or it could be a Greek word that means shortbread. But really I'm thinking it means comb now, because of, you'll see here, context clues. Often these are found signed, back to Hammer Bergstall's text here. Often these are found signed at the end of a letter of correspondence to signify their secret doctrine and arcane principles. Now by they, he's talking about the Templars. So it's like he's saying that X's and O's at the end of a letter is a Templar thing. Which is the first time I've ever heard that, but it may very well be true. What do I know? I find out all sorts of things that seem like they come from the Templars. More and more, all the time my understanding is expanding about what I think the Templars were and what their influence was. So maybe it is a Templar code, putting X's and O's at the end of our letters. But here's what he thinks it means. What he's saying about phalluses and chalices, he said earlier in his essay that there were several different images of objects he found in these Templar churches that had strangely placed Tau symbols in them. By Tau, the letter T. Let me see if I can find just one example so that we can... Okay, so you see this guy right here. He's holding the Tau, which Hammer Bergstall says is a Gnostic symbol used by the Templars to represent the penis and to represent gnosis and what he calls genital wisdom. Genital wisdom is sexual gnosis, the wisdom of the Garden of Eden, right? The wisdom of generation and birth and death, creating life. As you see that represented here. You see here, you've got the serpent on the cross, which we'll get into that in a little bit here. This used to have a phallus descending into the pot, but see, Hammer Bergstall has rubbed it out. He didn't want to publish it. There were certain things that he cleaned up for his audience. So he cleaned up there used to be testicles and penis going into this. And and that corresponds to the sacrifice of the testicles and penis to the moon goddess, the goddess of generation, the castration rites of Kybel, which again we'll talk about here. Several things about this picture you should note, because these are things that I'm going to talk about. Like I said, the serpent on the Tau, on the cross. You've got this, what kind of seems like a guy, but he's got breasts. They're kind of making love with these serpents. See, they're kissing, and this one's kind of crawling up her butt. And then you got this guy, and he's got these feathers coming out, or these wings, and he's seated on top of some kind of bird. Weird looking bird. We can't tell if it has a beak or not, and that's important. I mean, it's got a maybe kind of nose area there, but I can't tell if it's got a beak or not, and that's going to be an important detail, as I'll show you. And then notice this thing draped over his face. What is that? I thought it was a goose for a long time. Took me a while, but I figured out recently that's a serpent too. And this comes from Mithraism. I'll show you. But anyway, so you originally had the penis and testicles being sacrificed here, basically, to the moon. You see that here. And it even show. Notice how they show the moon kind of looking like a cigar clipper. Well, I'm sure that's on purpose. It looks like an object for doing a circumcision. And then out of here you see a baby, a homunculus baby coming out, the new sun. All this is stuff I talked about in Genuflect. But I keep getting more and more understanding of what it all means here. So this is stuff from Hammer Perkstall's book. This is stuff he found in what were Templar churches. He thinks they're actual Templar artifacts. Some of them are bowls, some of them are coins, some of them are caskets. I found 2 of the caskets at the British Museum. The others haven't been found. But anyway, so there's your Tau. Okay, there's your sacred Tau, which he says, let's see what you can just find out what he says about Tau. He calls it a Baphometic character, the letter T. So anytime he sees the letter T by itself, he thinks it stands for this. Talks about Church of the Templars called Aki Katina in Sicily, where the Tau is often sculpted into the pavement. And also in the Berchtoldsdorf Church in Austria, in the right-hand part of the choir area. So, and so here's some other examples, by the way, of, you see, these are from, again, Templar, or what he thinks are Templar artifacts. One of them shows the boy being swallowed by the serpent head first. This one shows kind of a monster with the boy coming out of the mouth, and the woman is sitting on top. I don't whoever that is, the Virgin maybe. So yes, it could be read as auto, which is weird because it's backward. You know, it's not even backwards. I don't know what you'd call it. It's mirror switched. It's flip flop somehow. You know. Or you could say, oh, maybe it's trying to say something else because there's a secret code. And so what is that secret code then? Well, he talks about phalluses and chalices, so he's saying like the O is, you know, a vaginal symbol, and then the T, he's saying it's the Tau symbol, it's a Baphometic symbol, and that it's a phallic symbol, he said earlier in the essay. So he's saying it's some kind of sexual coding here. Which my own theories after staring at these things that don't necessarily conflict with that at all, actually. I wrote quite a bit about the fleur-de-lis and how it seems to come from this thing called the Illyrion. Is a phallic symbol, but you have to kind of decode it to realize that, and then I think the fleur-de-lis comes from that and is also a phallic symbol with a very specific meaning having to do with castration, and I'll show you. But let's talk about T-O-O-T. And then let's say that this X is really an H. Okay, so I pointed out in my intro to Hammer Perkstall's Mysterium Baphometus that when I looked at this coin, numbered coin 100, also tab 5, figure 100 in the book, that when I looked at this the first time, I thought I saw the word tooth. This X in a box thing, my mind just automatically stuck an H in there instead. And I thought I saw the word tooth. And I had already been thinking, when I saw that, it made me think actually. I had already thought about that there's a connection between the Biscioni and several god figures from the ancient world, the alleged ancient world. So Thoth is one of them, Hermes, Odin. Started off with Odin, as I noticed that Otto and Odin have the same roots and are kind of interchangeable words. Like the name Otto can also be spelled Othone, O-T-H-O-N-E, or Otho, O-T-H-O. So Odon, Atone, Othone, and Odin, all the same word. The name Otto was used not only for these kings and these, margraves in Brandenburg that we're talking about, but also many of the Holy Roman Emperors were named Otto. You can find a lot, and the Habsburgs Several of them were named Otto, including one of the more recent ones. And all these guys are related, all these royal families in Europe. So, I did some digging, and it's all in Meet, my intro to Mysterium Baphometus, where I connect quite directly these kings, their names, the symbolism of the Biscione and of the, which is the symbol of the serpent swallowing the boy, or the boy coming out of the serpent giving birth to the boy, and this god king, Otto, Hermes, Odin. Odin is considered, like the wisdom god, comparable to Hermes anyway. And then there's a lot of direct connections between Odin and Hermes. And usually they say that Woden is the same as Odin. There's some people that have a disagreement about that, but generally people say Woden is just another way of saying Odin. And the day of the week that's supposed to be named after Hermes, because, each one of the days of the week corresponds to one of the classical planets, one of the planetary archons, as the Gnostics would call them. One of the 7 classical planets, right? Sun, the moon, and 5 visible planets that you can see with your naked eye, that the ancients could see without telescopes and without NASA telling them that it was there. So the day that's supposed to be named after or dedicated to Hermes, Mercury, known to the Romans as Mercury, known to the Greeks as Hermes, known to the Norse as Odin or Woden. So the day that we have in English named after this character is called Wednesday, Woden's Day. Anyway, that's all. That is just a point. It proved that Odin, Hermes, Mercury, Woden, these are all connected. And I showed quite plainly in Meet, the introduction I wrote to Mysterium Baphometus, that they are all symbolized by a sea monster or a dragon or a serpent. And then they are also known for fighting these creatures. And I had several points with this, one of which just has to do with the idea that, these are all symbols of snakes fighting and conquering other snakes. And another thing that's interchangeable with dragon, sea monster, fish, whale, like in the case of Jonah, dragon, sea monster, serpent, fish, whale, all of these things were represented as the same, with similar connected words, and represented the same thing to so-called ancient man. They are utilized in all of these myths interchangeably. And another thing that goes on that list as interchangeable is a worm. A worm and a snake connected, the same thing. A worm, a snake, a dragon, they're all the same concept. And the worm, like the Hydra, the multi-headed dragon, fought by Hercules, and even in some stories of St. George, the reason why it's the worm that won't die, right? The reason why is the one they talk about in the Bible as the devil, the worm that won't die. It won't die because every time you cut off its head, another head springs up. You have to kill them utterly in order to get them to die. So anyway, back to Otto. Otto is Thoth. Otto is Odin. Right? And the word Odin, din, the din part, is connected to all the words that we have for tooth. And as I pointed out in my essay, actually anything that is sharp, biting, or destructive. Right? So a knife that cuts is like a tooth. And that's what I compared it to. I said this word that's associated with this creature who's really, okay, Otto and Thoth and all that. This is the incarnation of this figure as a teacher and initiator. You know, the father of learning, writing, things like that. But he's also Saturn. He's also Kronos. He's the Lord of Time, and this is the figure, like Mithras, born inside, or first conceived, right, inside of a hermaphroditic being. This is what's thought of as the cosmic egg. You can think of it, just think of it like represented by this barrier there around Otto here. Alright, so he's born inside the cosmic egg, or he's conceived inside the cosmic egg, which is really the womb of a hermaphroditic creature that's having sex with itself. So anyway, I pointed out in my essay that, right, the word den is anything sharp, biting, or destructive. And that's where we would get the word dentist and orthodontia and dentalia. A dentalia is the name of it's the Latin word for the share beam of a plow. So Kronos, for one thing, he's associated with a sickle. This is the sickle he used to castrate his father. That's the story, is that his father was Uranus and his mother was Gaia, but originally they were one being. And the story is that Gaia was always getting pregnant, but Kronos didn't want to let the babies come out of the womb. And then they don't really go into enough detail, but there's the story of how Saturn had to castrate his father in order to overcome this. Well, so we're talking about the penis being severed as it's inside of the vagina, inside of the, you know, it's all taking place inside of this cosmic egg. There's a creature having sex with itself, like I said, and impregnating itself, and the babies can't come out until one of them manages to sever the penis, which is like a plug holding them into the womb, right? So how would he get a sickle? They say his mother provided it somehow. She helped him come up with this plot to castrate his father and then overcome him, because she wanted to save her babies, right? But she was still part of his father. His father and his mother were the same creature. At any rate, they say he castrated his father and then ripped Gaia and Uranus, the sky, apart. And then there was this war, and he forced, at the end of, actually they don't tell this end of the story really until after the War of the Titans, because that's when Saturn is at war with his own sons later in the story, because instead of keeping them in the womb like his father did, he swallows them as soon as they're born. So instead of two creatures that are one with like a shared womb inside of which are their babies, so they're kind of like an egg, like I was saying, cosmic egg. Instead of that, you have two creatures. One, well, it was said that Saturn swallowed the babies, right? So one of them is like basically mouth on the vagina at all times of the other to swallow the babies. And I'm wondering if I thought of this a couple of years ago, and I put it in my novel Genuflect. I thought of it as being kind of like, well, what if they're both hermaphrodites? You know, Saturn and his wife was, let's see, Rhea, I believe. What if they were both really hermaphrodites, just like his father was, his father and mother were, you know? So if they're like that, then they're like earthworms, and they may be mating, but it's going to be kind of a 69 type thing. where they're well, that's the way earthworms do it. They they're both hermaphrodites, and then they have sex with each other's opposite side on their body simultaneously and impregnate each other. Interesting. So anyway, I was thinking, well, what if that's what was happening with Saturn, and then rent them apart to create separate heaven and earth, Gaia and Uranus. What sort of sickle or scythe would his mother have provided him with? It could only be the tooth, right? Isn't that why he's named that? I mean, why we have the name Odin? Din. What else would you have as a creature that's just been gestated? How would she have come up with the idea of a knife and then fashioned one? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about a tooth. Or teeth. A set of teeth. That's how he castrated his father. That's how he cut himself out. And it just so happens in the Mysteries of Mithras, this castration rite is sort of recreated. He slays the bull, right? So a male cow. And in a lot of the pictures, it looks like it's a calf, or not fully grown bull. I have it here. There's not very many of these, but there are pictures, and find them in a few of the Mithraics of one of Mithras's assistants. He's got a bunch of smaller Smurf-like assistants that all wear the Smurf hat, the Phrygian cap, and one of them is raping the bull. So, I mean, anally sodomizing the bull. So while the bull is being attacked by Mithras and all of his helpers, he's being sodomized. And then, according to one source that I found, I don't know where they would get these details exactly, but they said that when the person doing the rape, they thought this ritual actually was taking place inside the Mithraics, which most historians say they're too small to put a cow in to kill. But what if it was a small cow, a small bull? So let's say there was a small bull in there, they're raping it, and then when the climax of the rape happens, then they cut its throat at that moment. And then all of the Mithraics have an image of a scorpion taking the testicles, cutting them off. And mythologists and historians, archaeologists will tell you this represents the moon goddess, the second, I think, stage of the Mithraic initiations. This is the way they've reconstructed it. That's dedicated to the moon. She's the genetrix of souls. Souls come into our incarnation through her. It's kind of thought of, the moon is thought of as an egg, really. And that it's also you have to go through the moon to come into manifestation here on Earth. And in order to get out, you got to get around the moon somehow. In the Mithras liturgy, which is it's instructions to a magician about rising up through the levels of the heavens and getting past all of the archons. And the first thing you need to do is do it on a moonless night, because then you don't have to deal with the moon trying to keep you here on Earth. So the moon represents what makes things come into manifestation, right? And that's how did Saturn come into manifestation? By cutting off the genitals of his father, splitting apart his mother and father, and just coming out. Them to the moon, supposedly, to eat as a sacrifice. So the moon is thought, it seems like, is being thought of as this thing that is cutting us off from heaven, separating us from heaven, that severed the genitals of heaven, Uranus. In the Grail mysteries, there's this figure called the Fisher King. It's either the grandfather or the uncle of the hero Parsifal, who represents the fool, the hero of the Grail story. The real point of the Grail story is for him to figure out what happened to the Fisher King, his father or uncle. Or maybe both, who knows? I mean, his grandfather or uncle. And like I say, yeah, these things can get complicated if we're talking about primary figures. Maybe his grandfather and his uncle could be the same thing. But at any rate, the Fisher King is in this deathless state, can't die, wants to die. He's been suffering ever since this battle he had where he got wounded in the thigh, they say, and everyone interprets this as some kind of genital wound. I'm thinking total wound, castration, right? But the wound won't heal, and it gets worse, the story says, with certain movements of the moon and the planet Saturn. Saturn is the one that castrated. The moon was the device used to do the castration. And in a way, she represents the mother, too. So think on these things with the stuff that I'm just about to show you. I pointed out in my essay, Meet, several things about this image, right? You've got this hand penetrating through this membrane here, coming down from heaven. Well, the word heaven means hard, stony vault, as I pointed out. It's connected to the idea that heaven is a firmament, a dome, a hard dome, a barrier. The word hymen means membrane. And so, yes, I pointed out for one thing that it kind of looks like this hand is penetrating a hymen, coming down from heaven to do that. So you've got it coming down from here. The hand is kind of forming the same shape, see, as the fleur-de-lis. This is poking up, that's coming down. There's this debris coming out. Let's see, there's 12 of them. Don't know what that means. 12 houses of zodiac, who knows? But anyway, and then he's holding this lance here. And then you've got these two phallic-looking towers that he's standing in between. And he looked pretty proud of himself, too. Right? And they show the sword going in between the T and the O. What did Hammer Perkstall say they were? Chalices and phalluses. Penis and vagina. The sword going through them. Separating them. Separating the mom and the dad. Heaven and earth. So you've got it all here. Thoth. Tooth. Penetrating the membrane, severing the two. How, if you put the word hot, or the three words, the word repeated 3 times, and put them there without spaces, if you just repeated it over and over again, not just 3 times, like 200 times or whatever, you know, it could just be like, you could see the word hot, you could see the word thoth, You see the word Otho for Otto or Odin. It's all in there, right? So I just started wondering to myself, could there be any relationship there, really? I mean, because The Cure, they're not known for really having a lot of occult symbolism in their songs, but, you know, Robert Smith wasn't into that kind of stuff as much. But started playing the lyrics to this song over in my head, and then I realized that's actually what it is about. And it's probably one of these things where people just, creative people end up channeling things even if they don't mean to. So I wouldn't doubt if this song was written without any of the people actually thinking about how it connects with, certainly not Thoth or Otto. Maybe they didn't even think about Mithras, which is what I ended up writing about, how it's very much the Mithraic story of Mithras rising through all the different levels of the universe to try to conquer them. And in the song, they tell you the story of 3 different levels of reality. And each time he bursts through, see, the song is like from the perspective, this is how I'm interpreting it. I don't know what Robert Smith was thinking when he wrote it, or when he and his friends wrote it. I have no idea. It doesn't really matter. Because what it is actually about is obvious. It doesn't matter what he thought he was writing. So what matters is what came out. So the story is told in these 3 instances of lightning striking. Now, that happens to be how Mithras was born. For one thing, his conception took place when lightning hit a rock. In many versions of the story, it's Zeus's sperm lightning. At any rate, Zeus, being kind of a sky and storm god, was associated with lightning bolts. That's one of his symbols. And you always see them in pictures where Zeus has taken animal form so that he can rape a human female. There's many of these stories. Alright, so let's go ahead and watch Hot, 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 the video, the official music video. And then we'll go over the lyrics.